Hey, before starting the Porygon2 analysis off, let me address what GSC UUBL is. GSC UUBL is the ban list for GSC Unused. GSC UUBL is meant to be a ban list, but in the past year, there's been a number of people who have played this and treated it as an actual metagame. This is because GSC UUBL has a lot of Pokemon. It has 25 Pokemon in it, which is enough to fill an entire tier. For reference, GSC OU has 24 Pokemon, meaning GSC BL is slightly bigger. The UUBL tiers of GSC and ADV work differently than in later generations. Instead of being the Pokemon that got banned from Underused, they were more so meant as the middle tier between OU and UU. Pokemon were put into UUBL if they were viable and could win tournament games in OU, but they weren't exactly OU caliber. They weren't as easy to use or slap on teams as the Pokemon that were in Overused. This is why GSC and especially ADV have huge BLs. ADV BL has over 50 Pokemon for crying out loud. Due to how large GSC UUBL is, people wanted to see how it, as a metagame, would play. Initially, this was done to see which UUBL Pokemon could be balanced in UU, but eventually, it just evolved into another GSC tier. GSC BL is an interesting GSC meta, and I wanted to show it some love. So, to start that off, I'm gonna analyse the tier's most dominant Pokemon, Porygon2. Say hello to the undisputed god of GSC UUBL. Porygon2 is the most dominant and centralising Pokemon in the format. This cybernetic duck combines offense, defense, support, and versatility, which lands it at the top of the viability rankings and usage stats. Porygon2 is both one of the best offensive and defensive Pokemon in the tier. Its offensive sets are difficult to consistently counter, and it's difficult to consistently break through. Its presence defines the metagame. Teams are often forced into using normal resist because of it. You can slap Porygon2 onto nearly every team and get away with it. When you build teams and play games in this tier, Porygon2 is the #1 threat to keep in mind. Let's just dive into why this duck is so good and analyse the ruler of GSC UUBL. Porygon2 has an insane amount of things going for it, so I'll start off with the main thing that makes Porygon2 so powerful: Recover. One take I have on competitive Gen 2 is that Recover is the best move in the game. It's more powerful than Spikes and Rest if you ask me. It's not the most defining or influential move, since few Pokemon actually learn it, but I think it's the single most powerful move in the game. Porygon2 in UUBL, alongside Mewtwo and Ubers, is the main Pokemon I point to when I want to show someone how broken Recover is. In Gen 2, Recover has 32 PP, making it incredibly spammable. If Porygon2 is ever low on HP, just click the Recover button. Recover lets Porygon2 stick around for a long time, and let it stall out Pokemon that don't hurt it too badly. Recover becomes unfair when paired with Paralysis. Now you outspeed your opponent and can freely spam Recover until they get either fully paralysed, or you are out of KO range. Unlike Rest plus Sleep Talk, Recover only takes up one move slot, meaning Porygon2 is much more flexible. Recover makes Porygon2 much easier to bring onto the field, because it can just recover off any damage it takes the following turn. If Recover was 16 PP like in later generations, Porygon2 would still likely be the best Pokemon, but it would be harder for it to stick around long term. Porygon2 combines Recover with solid defensive stats and a great typing. Fighting types are basically non-existent in GSC UUBL, so Porygon2 usually has no weaknesses to worry about. Only a select few Pokemon use fighting moves as coverage, and they don't pose much of a threat after a curse. With Thunder Wave and Recover, Porygon2 is able to blanket check a ton of common Pokemon, like Houndoom, Dragonite, and Kingdra. With Thunder Wave, it can serve as a backup answer to set up sweepers, like Espeon and Swords Dance Tentacruel. Paralysis is a huge detriment for Pokemon like Alakazam, Dragonite, Jolteon, Espeon, Houndoom, and more. Thunder Wave is also fantastic support for Pokemon like Swords Dance Tentacruel, Belly-Drum Charizard and Clefable, Muck, and Ursaring. Rest Hug is actually far less common in GSC UUBL when compared to other GSC tiers, meaning Paralysis is incredible here. As mentioned earlier, Thunder Wave pairs very well with Recover, but it also pairs well with Curse, because it offsets the speed drop. This lets Porygon2 spam Recover versus his opponents more feasibly. Curse turns Porygon2 into an offensive monster, and it helps it out defensively. Double Edge is its primary stab move due to its power. The recoil isn't that bad for Porygon2 since it has Recover. There is little counterplay to Curse Porygon2. Aside from Scizor and Aerodactyl, GSC UUBL is kinda lacking in normal resists. Teams that drop normal resist need to be very careful around Porygon2, lest it sweep them entirely. These teams usually use status, as well as moves like Haze and Roar, to deal with Porygon2. This isn't always reliable though, considering Roar users have to take a curse boosted hit before using the move, while Haze users, aside from Omastar and Haunter, don't resist normal and usually don't have recovery. Porygon2 can often just outlast its checks, or wear them down to the point that they get KO'd. Curse's defense boost also improves Porygon2's matchup against physical attackers, like Tentacruel, Tauros, Muck, and Donphan. Porygon2 becomes nearly impenetrable on the physical side after a single Curse boost. Curse Porygon2 is usually able to defeat Curse Ursaring in a 1v1, though it's not as great versus Kangaskhan. Special attackers like Alakazam, Espeon, and Jolteon can threaten Porygon2, but they despise Paralysis and get hit hard by Double Edge. Porygon2 also has a good coverage move pool. It has Bulk Beam coverage with Ice Beam and Thunder/Thunderbolt. These moves can let Porygon2 beat its few checks. Thunder slams Roar Aerodactyl and Haze Omastar, who are decent answers to Mono Porygon2. It also deals solid damage to Lapras and Tentacruel, and it has a 30% paralysis rate. Ice Beam deals a lot of damage to Dragonite, Donphan, Aerodactyl, while hitting grass types relatively hard. Its freest chance shouldn't be forgotten about either. Hidden Power Fire is a more gimmicky option, but it lets Porygon2 beat Curse Scizor and Magneton. Porygon2 can run Ice Beam or Thunder over Thunder Wave on its Curse set, or it can drop Curse and use Thunder Wave alongside one half of Bulk Beam. Porygon2 doesn't need boost to be a threat. Normal stab is incredible and it has strong special coverage. It's still able to support itself and its team with Thunder Wave. Porygon2 can even explore wacky options like Nightmare, which can be used to break Sleep Talkers. Return is also an option over Double Edge if you dislike the recoil. Porygon2 works well with several other Pokemon. Spikes, which are set up like Quillfish, wear down all the checks of Porygon2, with the exception of Roar Aerodactyl. Porygon2 just becomes more annoying to switch into when its opponents are taking extra chip damage. Houndoom is another good partner. With Pursuit, it can remove Alakazam and Haunter. The former can annoy Porygon2 with Thunder Wave, Psychic, and Encore, while the latter is immune to normal, letting it wall certain Porygon2 sets. Pokemon that can lure in checks to Porygon2 are also good partners. Earthquake Kangaskhan, for example, can lure in Magneton and remove it, letting Porygon2 sweep. Hidden Power Grass Moltres can do similar feats against Omastar. Pokemon that appreciate paralysis support, like Belly-Drum Charizard, Swords Dance Tentacruel, and Curse Ursaring, also love having Porygon2 as a partner. You can even run multiple Curse normal types for an offensive assault. Porygon2 is just incredibly easy to slap onto a team. Running it has little opportunity cost. It's both one of the best offensive and defensive Pokemon around. With that being said, there's a few issues it faces. The main thing Porygon2 has to worry about is status, in particular paralysis. Since Porygon2 doesn't use rest, and Heal Bell is rarely seen, status is permanent on it. If Porygon2 is paralysed, it becomes slower than everything in the tier and loses crucial turns to full paralysis. A paralysed Porygon2 loses the ability to outspeed its opponents after a Thunder Wave them. It becomes much harder for Porygon2 to spam Recover and Curse when it's slower than everything and has a 25% chance to not move. Pokemon that Porygon2 can check, like Alakazam and Kingdra, can greatly hinder it with Thunder Wave and Dragon Breath respectively. Status is the primary way a lot of teams beat Porygon2. It becomes easier to hack through Porygon2 when paralysed. Poison is also annoying for Porygon2. When poisoned, the additional chip damage means Porygon2 has to use Recover a lot more than it would have otherwise. It also makes it difficult to bring the duck in, especially when spikes are on the field. Pokemon that can inflict poison include the likes of Sludge Bomb Tentacruel and Toxic Donphan. Sleep, Burn, and Freeze are obviously problematic for Porygon2 as well, although they aren't seen as much. Status is just how a lot of teams play around Porygon2. Porygon2 doesn't match up great into certain common Pokemon, like Curse Scizor and Roar Kangaskhan. Speaking of Kangaskhan, it gives Porygon2 mild competition as a Curse normal. It has moves like Roar and Earthquake over Porygon2, as well as a higher speed stat. Curse Roar Kangaskhan is a good answer to Curse Porygon2, and Curse Rest Talk sets are capable of defeating Mono Porygon2. Porygon2 can have some move slot issues, since it wants a lot of moves, but it can only choose 3 after the mandatory Recover. While Porygon2 is amazing, even it can't beat everything. Special attackers, like Growth Espeon and Jolteon, can overwhelm Porygon2. Explosion users, like Mucken Haunter, can blow through it as well. Porygon2 has no resistances and takes spikes damage, so it's far from unbreakable. It can be difficult to bring it into the field sometimes. Make no mistake though, Porygon2 is by far the best Pokemon in GSC UUBL. It has very few reliable answers, and most of them it can outlast with Recover. All the flaws I mentioned don't come close to harming Porygon2's viability. It's still immensely dangerous when paralysed, and you always need to play around it with extreme caution. Porygon2 is dangerous, Porygon2 is bulky, Porygon2 is versatile, and Porygon2 is splashable. It's the textbook's definition of a tier king. You don't need to use it on every team, but you should try to use it as much as you can. Porygon2 is the defining Pokemon of GSC UUBL.